if you don't love me and you blame me for this, please just kill me now. I don't want to be alive. Oh, very good. Yeah, that would happen. All right, so the two parts are, he says that the love of her beauty drove him to do the deed, and he offers his life for her to show us. All right, I will go to rescue for the 10th question. What's Richard's state of mind toward the end of the play? Is he sane? Is he normal? What's his mind doing again? The dude's seeing ghosts, so what's his state of mind? Yeah, he's going crazy, right? He's losing it. He's totally losing it at the end. How can you tell? That's the second part of the question. How can you tell? Well, he's seeing ghosts for one thing. For another thing, why is he killing all these people? Huh? To maintain kingship, but because he thinks they're plotting on him, or he thinks that they're going to try to take him over, right? That's why he does that. He invents these little things. He's like, is that guy eyeballing me? I think he's plotting on me. I better have him killed too. He's getting paranoid. He's losing it. He's nutso by the end of this. Basically, that's it. Okay, so those are the questions that I'm going to ask you from Richard III that are grammar type questions. Now we get to the Hobbit. All right, I have to pause before we go over the questions of the Hobbit. For those of you that are new and not already aware of it, the Bible is the best book ever written.
But you look a lot like him.
The second best book ever
I'm his
written
daughter.
is The Lord of the Rings.
Very good.
If you do not agree, feel free to keep your opinion to yourself. I love The Lord of the Rings. It's my favorite book after the Bible. I think it's just an all-around great book. Now, The Hobbit was kind of a silly book compared to The Lord of the Rings. It's kind of written with a more carefree style, like kids, instead of an adult type of story and whatnot. But it is the precursor to it. That's why I selected it for you guys to read it in the summer, because we're reading The Lord of the Rings during the school year this year. I love this story. You'll find out more about it as we start reading it, why I love it so much. I think it has a little bit of everything in there. It also has something to do with my personality type, why I like it, and we'll talk about that when we get to the actual book. I hope that you took the time to read this book and not pollute your mind with all the trash from the movie version of it, because things will not go well for you if you start saying, "Whoa, it was really cool when they escaped in the barrels and they were shooting arrows out of the top of them." No, they were sealed in the barrels. They were not shooting out of the top of them. The movie, I could only enjoy it if I pretended like it wasn't about the book. That's the only way that I was finally able to enjoy it. Enough said. Number 11, first question from the Hobbit. Who rescues Gandalf, Bilbo, and the dwarves from the wargs and orcs in the forest?
The Eagles.
Yes, the eagles swoop down and rescue them. Number 12. How is Smaug finally defeated? Lillian.
Bard shoots him with a big arrow in the
the black arrow.
chink of his armor.
Yes. Now, Smaug thought that he was invulnerable because he'd been laying on beds of diamonds for years and encrusted he thought his whole chest area with these diamonds and stones to protect himself, but there was a spot that would allow the arrow through for Bilbo's side. Number 13. How did they escape from the prison of the Elven King? Aaron.
party, and then God walked in the background, and then Bilbo put them in the barrels, and then they floated down.
Mm-hmm. Now, does that sound like a fun time to you to be packed into a barrel, dropped through a gate into the river running down below, jostled around, beaten into other barrels, and to spend about 2 days inside of that barrel? Because the first night, they just gathered the barrels together and put them by the side of the river, and they don't even sail until the next day down to Lake Town. Actually, it's probably about 15 hours they spend it, something like that. All right, so it doesn't sound like a whole lot of fun, especially for the ones who leaked, right? Some of them leaked and let water inside, and when they drug them out, they were almost passed out and half drowned when they got them back out there. Bilbo made a slight miscalculation in his escape plan for them, because he was using the ring to hide himself, and he gets all of them packed into the barrels, and then suddenly what occurs to him?
He doesn't have a barrel.
He doesn't have a barrel, and even if he did, who's going to pack him in it? So suddenly he's like, whoa, I think I left somebody out of the escape plan. So he decides he's just going to jump over the side and hope that he doesn't drown, and try to hold on to the barrels and so on and so forth. As it turns out, it works out, but of course he gets a really bad book. All right, number 14. Who and what is Gandalf? Yes. Mm-hmm. He's a wizard, and what else do we know about him?
He is basically traveling.
Yeah, he's really good with fireworks. He's really good with fire in general. And you're going to find out why in the Lord of the Rings. Yes, he goes on adventures. He's not one of the wizards that found a home and just stayed there. He goes on adventures all the time. He's got quite the reputation in the Shire. Every time he shows up, but young people go off on adventures, and some of them never come back, and the ones that do come back, and they're weird by Shire standards, right? Weird by Shire standards. Okay, now, one other thing that was not revealed in the book, but maybe somebody knows the answer to. What is Gandalf actually? He's called a wizard in Middle-earth, but what is he actually? Yes, he's an angel. He's actually an angel. In the mythology written by Tolkien, there is a creation story that's recorded in a book called the Silmarillion. And in this book, it records that God created the earth by using the angels to accomplish his will. And there's two different classes of angels. There's the top class, which are like really powerful, and then there's the next group down called Meyer, and that's where Gandalf is one of those. All right, so he is actually an angel who took the form of a human being to come to Middle-earth and do battle with Sauron, who, by the way, is a demon. All right, Sauron is one of the angels who turned and followed Morgoth, who was the Satan figure. Morgoth is the one in the beginning who causes big problems, and in the Silmarillion, they have to go to war with Morgoth a couple different times, and Sauron is just one of his henchmen at that time. Okay.
Are the other wizards also angels?
Yes, they're all angels. All angels. Yeah. Unfortunately, of course, Saruman turns from being a good angel to a bad angel over the course of the story. Okay. Number 15. Who and what is Bilbo? Yes. Okay. Now that's an important characteristic to mention in there, that his family line is both Baggins on his father's side and Took on his mother's side. Now, why is that important? Well, because the Baggins are very respectable, is the word that's used, right? Bagginses are respectable. Now, what does it mean to be a respectable hobbit? Well, you don't go on any adventures, that's for sure, right? And you should be so predictable that nobody even needs to ask you a question without knowing what the answer is going to be. That's what a respectable hobbit is, all right? But those tooks, they're a little weird. They live over by the river. Some of them even have boats. No self-respecting hobbit would ever be caught dead on a boat, right? They just don't do things like that. They just sit around and they farm and they throw parties and they smoke pipe weed. That's mostly what they do. But those tooks, they're kind of crazy. They're over there close to the river and close to the old forest, and sometimes they go on those pesky adventures. So this is important because when Gandalf shows up with the dwarves for the party at Bilbo's, uninvited, he knows that he will be able to spark the Turkish part of him into desiring this adventure. And he does succeed in doing that. Who and what is Smaug? Sheila.
Dragon.
Okay, and what did he do in the story?
He took over the mountain.
Yes, he took over the Lonely Mountain back when some of the dwarves weren't even born yet, so it's been quite a while. And the older dwarves were living there, and he came in and killed off many of the dwarves. A few of them escaped. He killed a lot of them. He also killed a lot of men that lived in Dale, the town that was close to there. And he's been sitting on their pile of gold ever since. They've got wealth unimaginable. It's kind of funny the first time that Bilbo actually sees the pile of gold and everything, right? And he looks at it and he's like, are they kidding me? They hired me to steal this? If Smaug wasn't even here, it would take me 100 years to haul it all out. What are they thinking? So it's kind of funny that they hire a burglar, even though they know they're going to have to kill the dragon and all that stuff. There's no way to ever get it out from the mountain. I also think it's hilarious that Smaug got all this stuff, and he somehow has counted everything. So when he picks up the cup and takes it up to show them, he's like, hey, whoa, where's my cup? Where's my cup? And he gets all angry. How do you notice a cup missing in a mound of jewels and stuff? But he's a little bit on the obsessive side of this. Number 17. What's the main goal of their adventure? What are they trying to accomplish in this goal? Caleb.
Ultimately, kill Smaug.
And regain the mountain. Yes, recover the Lonely Mountain. That's their ultimate goal. Number 18. What's the, quote, turning point in Bilbo's career and life? No. What does he find that makes all of a sudden his whole life change? The ring. Yes, it's the finding of the ring. All right, they get separated when they're in the goblins' tunnels. They get separated, and he gets knocked out, and he wakes up, he's all by himself, and he starts falling, and he puts his hand out and finds the ring. And it says in the book, it was the turning point of his career, although it did not. All right, so why is this ring, which will make you invisible? Number 19, what does it mean when they refer to Baron as a skin changer? What does it mean to be a skin changer? Slave. Okay, specifically, he can become a bear, a huge bear. All right, this dude is so big as a man, it says that if Bilbo had wanted to, he could have trotted right between the guy's legs and not even brushed his head on the fringe of his, what do they call it? Not a coat. What did it say it was? I can't remember what it's called. But the outfit that he's wearing, he said he could have trotted right between his legs and not even touched the bottom of his outfit. That's how big this guy is as a man. And as a bear, he's huge. Huge. All right, so he's a skin changer. Number 20. Why did the men of the Long Lake agree to help the dwarves? They want a share of the treasure, and remember the old prophecy said, when the king under the mountain returns, the river will flow with gold. Oh, there you go, flow with gold. Very good. All right. So they want a cut. They want a share of that. By the way, that's not why the master of Lake Town helps them. The master of Lake Town helps them to get them out of town because he thinks they'll go up there, disturb the dragon, get killed, and they won't be as prominent. But the people believe the prophecy. All right, final question. That's a sentence question. Name the groups that participated in the battle of 5 armies. Well, if it's 5 armies, what are they?
Forts, wards, outlays, wars.
Okay, now, it's interesting they call it 5 armies because there's at least one other group that participates towards the end. The eagles come in, and one other individual that participates. Well, Gandalf's kind of hanging out with the Baron shows up again, right? In bear form. He shows up in bear form and attacks the bodyguard of the head orc guy. All right, so here are your logic questions requiring a paragraph answer. Paragraph is about 3 sentences long. It doesn't have to be super long, 3 to 5 sentences, somewhere in that range. So, number 1, discuss 2 of the events from the play that illustrate Richard's tyranny. So discuss 2 things that illustrate that he was a tyrant. For example, you could say that he ordered his nephews killed, right? That's a pretty good indication of being a tyrant. You could discuss some of the other people that he had killed, right? So just mention 2 things. That can probably be answered in 2 sentences. All right? So discuss 2 events that show that Richard was a tyrant. Number 2, discuss Gandalf in as much detail as possible. Here are the things I'd like you to include. His appearance. What does he look like? Obviously, he looks like an older man. He has a gray mantle and hat, right? He carries a staff. He has a beard. Okay, so those are some things about him. Also include his character. What is his character like? He is inclined to be both quick to anger and quick to laugh, right? All right, so sometimes he can be like silly and have a good chuckle over something, and then you can just be sitting there having a regular old talk with him, and he can all of a sudden just get knock it off, serious on you. All right, so his character is kind of like that, but he is also known for being very honest, very good, so on and so forth. Discuss a few of his deeds and mention that he's a wizard. Okay, that's what you're doing. An angel. Yeah, all right, so number 1 of your rhetoric then. So your rhetoric question, there's only one of them. Your rhetoric question you should do, it says 1 to 1.5 pages on this one. So at least a page, and when I say a page, it's Times New Roman 12, 1-inch margins, typed out. If you handwrite it, it's going to be longer than a page. David likes to handwrite his out sometimes, and then his will usually go off. It's less space when you put that, or more space. So here's your question. This goes back to at the beginning of King Richard III. He makes excuses for why he turned out the way that he is. What kind of excuses do criminals today use or place their blame for their actions? What do they blame that on? Okay, so just throw 1 or 2 things out here. Normally we won't discuss these in class, but it's the first one, let's discuss it. What are some of the things that criminals try to blame? I'm like that because... Yes, number 1, they always blame mommy and daddy. Dad used to beat me, that's why I became a criminal. Well, it's sad that that happened, and you can see how that made it more difficult for them to turn out okay, but there's lots of people that have abused as kids that don't turn into criminals. Right? Huh? Mental illness. There's another one that they claim. Or they'll say, well, I tried to be a good citizen, I just could never, nobody would ever give me a chance, and so on and so forth, and so I had to turn to crime. That's another excuse. They could say something like that. They could say, Yeah, they could say that, especially if they say, I've been diagnosed with a terminal illness and I don't have any insurance to leave my family, so I was trying to commit these crimes to leave them some money. I didn't think I'd get caught. It would be something like that. That could be an excuse. There's lots of excuses. That's the first part of the question, because you're probably thinking to yourself, how am I supposed to get to a page on this? The second part of the question is, in light of what you know of God's Word, would you disagree or agree with their arguments? So in other words, using God's Word, how would you refute their argument that it's my parents' fault? Or the old classic, the devil made me do it, right? I've heard that sometimes too. And how would you refute that? And what would you look at for that? Okay? So it'd be about a page long for this first one, maybe running into the second page. But it's not a secret.
But my impression, maybe my impression was if there were old agreements, those are not valid. It would be active.
Okay. Questions? Yes. Okay. All right. Anyone need anything repeated? Yes. Uh-huh. I would try to remember at least the 5 main ones, the ones that he called the 5 armies. So I would try to remember those 5 at least. Get all of them, maybe you get a bonus from them. I failed. Now the message pops up reminding me, Lupa's birthday. It's my wife's birthday today. I didn't say squat this morning. Uh-oh. Okay. I'll send her something for her. All right, anything else? Yeah. Yeah, it does. According to his way of counting it, it counts them. They did sometimes do things by themselves. Usually they're with the orcs, but they did sometimes do things by themselves. And they can speak to each other.
Yeah, but they speak to people and they can understand.
If you speak word. If you speak word, you can speak to them. Yes.
Are there any more stories or anything that Booker wrote about other city changers, or is it?
I think one of the Lost Tales has a skin changer as well. It's also mentioned in here that the ability to change into a bear was retained by the descendants of Baron. So obviously he marries somebody at some point and has some children, but that none of them were ever as big as he was or as strong as he was. Yeah, it's not a very big species. It just kind of pops up. There's a lot of like species that aren't really large that pop up in there. And then you get probably the weirdest character in all of the Lord of the Rings mythology, probably the weirdest character, Tom Bombadil. He's a one of a kind. He's the first creature to walk the earth, but we don't know what in the world he actually is. He's like weird. It's weird. Some of the things written about him suggest maybe he was an angel of some sort as well, who liked Middle Earth so much that he wanted to be bound to Middle Earth. It's kind of weird stuff.
So you say he's the first to
I guess. All right, anything else? Pastor should be in just shortly. The bell should ring in like 30 seconds.
What about God?
Goblins is one of them. There weren't actually orcs. They were goblins.
Okay, but you refer to them.
Yeah, that's because they're kind of the same thing. Basically, an orc is larger than a goblin, but they're the same basic species. So he calls them goblins in The Hobbit, and he calls them orcs for most of the rest of it. Yeah. He calls them orcs in the Silmarillion, too. He just pulls out this goblins for The Hobbit for some reason. I don't know what's up with that. Well, he was trying to differentiate because apparently the Misty Mountain ones that were under the Great Goblin had been separated from the other orcs for so long that they'd almost become their own species. But that's kind of why he separates them. And as I was going through this review here, I just remembered I'm going to have to modify this before I print it for you guys, because this was one of the ones on the multiple choice where I stuck some people's names in it from the class. Because I had who actually killed the princess in the tower, and one of the choices was Kenny Richmond. And he would do it too. He wouldn't even hesitate. Now we get to the first time it's going to be an interesting thing. Now we get to what's going to be an interesting thing that I wasn't thinking ahead on. Pastor Lumber doesn't have his own login, so how do I log in? So it's going to be interesting. I'll just leave this up for you right now.